So, NFL draft in the rearview mirror. As is tradition every year, that's when I start talking about and discussing the NBA draft like I really give a crap. But I do, to a certain degree. The problem with the NBA draft, though, is it is such a massive, massive, massive crapshoot. To me, a far greater crapshoot than the NFL's draft is. Because what compounds the problems when talking about the NBA draft is you've got all of these teams pinning their hopes, especially if they're picking really high, on a bunch of 19 and 20-year-old kids that maybe have 1, and if you're lucky, 2 years of college experience. Throwing into the mix international players and trying to determine how they translate or not, it's a really bad place to be in, because sometimes you could take these guys and initially it looks like a total crapshoot, a total bust. Like, these guys don't do anything the first 3-4 years in the NBA. They don't do squat. So by the time they get to the end of their rookie contract, maybe they finally have started to show something, and then you got to decide, hey, am I going to plunk $20+ million a year into this kid that we took really high that's only shown us a half a season of real promise? I mean, it can't be much fun to be an NBA GM because you don't get a lot of can't-miss guys. They come, for sure, but they're few and far between. So the trick is to navigate through the muck and really project what these guys can be and hope to God that they live up to their upside. Now, my early impressions of the 2018 NBA draft classes is it looks like it's a pretty good class. You got 3 guys I think that most people are going to look at as a cut above the rest, and DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, and Marvin Bagley Jr., but you've got a second tier of guys that is also really good that could have a potential for a couple of those dudes to be future stars in the league, or totally not be. Again, it's a crapshoot, and I'm trying to learn as much as possible when it comes to the NBA draft. Don't be too sure unless you are absolutely positively sure, because a lot of these NBA teams, frankly, aren't that sure. But we're now getting to that time for the weekly NBA mock drafts. Isn't that exciting? Oh, baby. So as is tradition every year, my first mock draft will only cover the lottery picks 1 through 14. Because I'll be honest, as I get done with the NFL draft, I'm just now really just starting to catch up on the NBA draft and NBA prospects. So I play a lot of catch up in the next 5 to 6 weeks, and that's what's going to happen again this year. That's just the kind of the nature of the beast. So for now, you can look at all 14 picks for the lottery. Now, this is before the lottery actually happens Tuesday night, and once the lottery actually does happen, I will upload another mock draft with the 14 picks with the actual official lottery order. And keep in mind, again, I'm not coming from some place of great, massive knowledge at this point. Hopefully in a month to a month and a half, I will feel much more confident in my knowledge base. I've seen all of these guys, but to varying degrees, so my opinions most certainly can be changed. And a lot of this at this point is not my personal opinion. It's just based off of where I could perceive guys going, what I anticipate draft stocks might be. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Don't get too serious about it, because ultimately the only one of these mock drafts that really truly matters, same with the NFL, is the last one that I do. Then judge me off of that. So I don't know what more I can say. I look at this and I say DeAndre Ayton, number 1. Phoenix, the kid played his college ball in Arizona. Makes me wonder, though, with the Suns being the Suns, if they think Doncic could play the point guard because they would think he was a point guard, if they wouldn't just take his ass number 1. And I'm fully confident that there are some teams, in spite of what they might perceive as some of his athletic limitations, that are going to look at him as the number 1 player in this draft. So crazier stuff has happened. I look at the board and just kind of the way I could see things playing out right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers, that's going to be an interesting team for me, because they could sneak into that top 3, which would kind of fit the narrative of the thing being rigged. It could. Just saying. Because maybe LeBron stays in Cleveland, and now you give him a top 3 pick. You give him an Ayton, a Bagley, or a Doncic to play with. Or you're saying to the Cavaliers organization, we know LeBron might leave and rip your hearts out again. So here's somebody, a top 3 pick that you could start looking forward to the future with. I just wonder. But if the Cavs didn't and they stayed at pick 8, which is what they would have right now, Trae Young from Oklahoma makes a lot of sense to me. They need a guy that could shoot, that could space the floor for LeBron, assuming he stays, or even if he didn't. Either way, if LeBron goes, then Trae Young could be a high-volume scorer for them. A shooter that could space the floor, handle the rock. If LeBron stayed, then he needs somebody like Trae Young in that backcourt as a secondary ball handler, and again, a guy that can shoot, that could help space the floor. As far as the Bulls, to me right now, if I was spitballing it, I feel like the choice would come down to 1 or 2 players. It would either be Mo Bamba or Michael Porter Jr. And I know you might wonder why I have Michael Porter Jr. going 9th. I wonder if some teams are going to be concerned about the back issue that he had in his 1 season at Missouri where he barely played. I feel like that could be a real concern. It might scare some teams off. And still, we're talking about the NBA. And when in doubt, they're going to prioritize the big man over everything else, which is just flat out retarded. It is. It is a guard and perimeter player league now, period. 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago on forth, if you thought this 2 guard was a Hall of Famer and you thought this center was a Hall of Famer, you take the center 100 out of 100 times. It's where you look back at that 84 draft, the Rockets get absolutely no shit for taking Hakeem Olajuwon number 1 overall, because they got arguably a top 10 to 15 player of all time. What happened, though, is they did end up not getting the GOAT of all time, which was Michael Jordan. And the Blazers get so much crap because they took Sam Bowie, but at the time, it made sense that they would look at this guy as a center, and the league was still dominated by big men. You know, the best teams in the league at that time had dominant big men. The Lakers had Kareem. The Celtics had Bird and Parrish. Other teams had dominant big men. You know, you're talking about the 76ers with Moses Malone and so forth. But now, if you had that same situation, you take the dominant perimeter player, period. Like, this is not up for discussion. It's like the thing of, even if Greg Oden would have panned out and been the all-star that a lot of people thought he was going to be, you still take Kevin Durant 100 out of 100 times. And if you don't think so, then you're a moron. So we will see. You know, Ayton might, in theory, be the best player in this draft, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you take him number 1. And again, ultimately, your best path to success in today's NBA, it's about ball handling, it's about spacing the floor, it's about shooting, it's not about post guys. I know Ayton has a lot of skill offensively, but you're much more likely to win your titles built around guys at the 1, the 2, and the 3, not the guys at the 4 and the 5. Specifically at the 5. But what do I know? What do I know? But anyways, you can check out my 14 picks. They're all there. As we go along in the process, I will talk about these picks a little more in depth. Again, this is just an introduction, an initial offering for your amusement, and I hope you're amused, okay?